Hello, everyone. Jess Steinberg here with the Invisible Disabilities Association on another Invisible InCourage podcast. And, we've been talking to ambassadors, so I'm excited today to talk with Sue Seserman, who's one of our ambassadors. Hello, Sue. How are you doing today?
Hi, good. How are you, Jess?
I'm doing great, boy. We've got a lot of conversation about some of the really neat things you've been working on. So I'm going to let you kind of talk through, you know, what are the things that bring you to IDA as an ambassador and some of the other stuff that you've been playing with?
Absolutely. Well, I'm very proud to represent the Invisible Disabilities Association because I have several of them myself, and it's the invisible disabilities that I have that brought me to the work that I do and make me so enthusiastic about it. I am the creator and author of the graphic novel series Epilectra, who has an invisible disability herself. She has epilepsy, which I share with her. Although it wasn't the first invisible disability I was diagnosed with, I also share an invisible disability with my father, who had type 1 diabetes. So those are my two biggies.
There's a lot going on there. I mean, I grew up with a dad who had epilepsy, so I understand the constant challenge of anything that might happen at any time.
Yes, yes. And like I said, I'm the creator and author of Epilectra. She is a superhero who has epilepsy, but she is the leader of a team of superheroes, all of whom have different disabilities, many of whom have invisible disabilities, and they transform their disabilities into their super abilities, which is my term for their superpowers. And I use the term super ability because I wanted it to be the opposite of disability,
Hmm.
because I want people with disabilities to realize that they can use their disabilities as their super abilities if they dig hard enough and think hard enough, and they can actually find super abilities within their disabilities, which is what I did, because I never would have come to Epilectra if it weren't for my epilepsy.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I want to hear more about the characters and all that, but boy, you're hitting the nail right on the head here because I know, for instance, I mean, I live with severe dyslexia, and while most people would go, "Oh my gosh, well, we can't do anything with that," it's actually what's made me become so great at the creative stuff that I do in the media world, right? Because
Sure.
that's I adjust, I adapt, I do all this other stuff. And while I might be able to not read something if you just hand it to me right away, or it might take me an extra long time, boy, the ideas just start flowing and everything happens there. So sounds like we have a dog visitor.
Sorry, that's Scooter, the super dog.
There you
He's
go.
my companion, my sidekick, if you will.
Just out of curiosity, is the dog trained to recognize if you're about to have a seizure?
He's not, although he is certified as a
A
he does
support
come
dog?
with me wherever I go, and he's my service animal, although he does not recognize my seizures. Although I'm happy to say that I'm fortunate, because although it took a long time, I eventually got on the right combination of medications,
Hmm.
and I have not had a seizure since late October of 2019.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
I can say I'm very lucky. Although if you go back in time a little bit, I was having my first three seizures were grand mal seizures, but eventually I got to the point where I was having absent seizures on a pretty regular basis, and got into volunteer work with other epilepsy patients who were in the hospital. And it was my work with them and hearing a lot of what they had to say, which is what eventually led me to write Epilectra. I heard from them a lot about what they couldn't do or thought they couldn't do because of their epilepsy. They had given up on so many things. They'd given up on their careers, they'd given up on relationships, they'd given up on their education, they'd essentially given up on their independence, all because of their disability. And it seemed to me that that was unnecessary, and I found it very sad. And I wanted to do something that showed them that was unnecessary, that showed them that somebody with a disability could tap into their disability to do amazing things. And so I created a superhero with a disability, epilepsy, like they had. And eventually she rounded up a team with disabilities who could transform disabilities into super abilities to go out into the world to do amazing things. And that turned into Team Seize. And Seize is an acronym for support and empower everyone zealously. And that's what I try to do in the world for other people with disabilities.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it's kind of like our acronym IDEAS, right? When we say Invisible Disability Ideas, it's Invisible Disabilities Education, Awareness, and Support. So
Exactly.
hearing the C's as an acronym is really encouraging. Well, tell me a little bit about the story. Like, is this like comic book style? Is it a longer format, like a book in a graphic novel?
That's exactly, you're really hitting the nail on the head. A lot of people aren't familiar with the graphic novel book format, and it's the fastest growing book format. A lot of people aren't reading these days, but what they are reading is graphic novels. And what graphic novels are is exactly what you said. It's sort of a longer format of comic book. It's comic book style, and that it's heavily illustrated. And my illustrator, Jamie Brown, he was amazing. He did phenomenal artwork for me, and it's heavily illustrated, and it's beautifully written, I think. And I really tried to step into the world of people who were experiencing various disabilities, and they're not just, they grapple with them. They're not just, ta-da, I'm a superhero. These are superheroes who grapple with disability. And
Tell me a little bit about, like, are you taking, like, does each book deal with a character and therefore a disability, or tell me
well,
about the
there are two
storytelling?
books that are written. The first book is published, and the second book is written, but is not yet illustrated. But it's ready to be illustrated and published. And the way it works is that the goals of Team Seize is to rehabilitate the adversaries that they meet, and they call them adversaries because one of Team Seize's beliefs is that no one is born evil. So there's no killing or maiming or annihilating the bad guy. There's the belief that no one is born evil, and so they turn evil because of their circumstance. And they turn to evil because nothing else is working, they believe, to deal with the circumstances that they're thrown in. And so they work to find better circumstances for the adversaries that they meet. And so it's all about, they turn their, like I said, their disability into their super ability. For instance, the Epilectra, who is, the book is named after her. Epilectra is the leader of this team. She has epilepsy. She turns her super ability, or her disability, into a super ability, which means she can tap into the errant electricity in her brain, and your brain is full of electricity. She taps into the errant electricity in her brain, which causes her seizures, and she can send it through her fingertips as lightning out into the world. And she discovers this ability. Her human persona is a 5th grade social studies teacher in the New York public school system. She has a meeting with her principal one day, and he has a heart attack. And while she's waiting for EMS to get there, she's shaking him and saying, "Wake up, wake up." And tiny lightning bolts come out of her fingertips and basically serves as a defibrillator. And that's how she first discovers her super ability.
How fun.
And she goes home and she toasts her toast with her fingertips, and she gradually learns that she can use this ability on larger and larger levels.
Hmm.
Until
So how,
until one day the finale in book 3 of the first, or story 3 of the first book, is where you meet River Rager, who is very angry. He lives in the Hudson River in New York City, and is very
no
polluted.
wonder he's angry.
Yeah, he's very polluted, and he's half shark and half human. But he doesn't like the small confines of the Hudson River, and it's very polluted. And he gets really angry one day and turns circles and turns circles and turns circles until the river starts rising and it floods New York. And from the top of the Empire State Building, she sends down lightning bolts and basically vaporizes the flooding waters of New York and saves the humans of New York City. So, that's sort of the culmination of book 3 or book 1, story 3. And book 2 goes on where she meets many more very interesting, figures that she comes up against. And they work together too, the superheroes against the people that they work up against, and they serve to rehabilitate. And it's been a delight to write as well. And people that I've read it to, I've met with lots of kids who I've read it to already. And it's for adults as well as kids, but it's aimed mainly towards sort of middle school kids. The kids as young as 8, 10 have loved it. And adults who love graphic novels also have enjoyed it very much. But for a couple of years now, I've read to diabetes camps, kids with type 1 diabetes. There's a camp here in Colorado where I live, and I've read to them a couple of summers. And they want to know when the movie's coming out. And in my dreams, I see these characters on screen, in my dreams. But I've read to them a couple of summers in a row because one of my characters has type 1 diabetes, Insulator. And she's able to insulate herself from outside danger. And she and Epilectra team up against, story 6 in book 2, they team up against one of the adversaries in the first story in book 2. So that's what probably my favorite story. So I'm very excited to eventually get book 2 out there for people.
So tell me a little bit more about, like, it sounds like each book has
Each
a
book has
bunch
3
of,
stories.
oh, there you go. So it has 3
The
stories.
way it's set up is there's 2 books. Each book has 3 stories. I'm not sure how book 2 will release, whether it'll be like book 1, 3 stories combined, or whether I'm going to release it as 3 separate books. I may do it that way. I haven't decided yet.
How long is a book that has 3 stories in it? How many pages?
It's close to 200 pages.
Oh gosh, I would definitely release them individually.
Yeah, I might do it that way. I might do it that way because I think if I release it as 3 separate books, it'll be a little more, I don't know, it might be easier for kids to go out and buy with their own, allowance money or whatever, or money
Right.
they've raised themselves, as opposed to relying on a parent to get them for a holiday gift or something. I might do it that way, or I might release it online. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet.
Well, that's amazing. As a media person, I can already see the animated series and how valuable that would be. I mean, most animated series is kind of come in around that 10-minute mark these days that the kids are watching. And when I say kids, I'm talking about a range between, smaller kids to college kids of
Sure.
watching these kinds of things. And I actually do think the story ideas of having, this team sees people that are living with super abilities that overcoming disability. I should say not overcoming, but utilizing their disabilities in a positive
Right.
manner that allows them to feel better about who they are and what's going on, right?
Exactly. And that's exactly it. And that doesn't mean that they don't struggle with them too. It's a real battle. They struggle with them. I mean, you understand it. I understand it. It's not easy. but a disability also is just, it's part of who you are. And you can find good in it, or you can, wallow in it. But you, if you find the good in it, it's only going to result in good for you in the end. And it's possible you can do it. And there's also people out there who can help you do it. There's associations who you can turn to, who can help you find the positive, if you're struggling. And that's something that I'm happy to be doing, hopefully through Epilectra and through some of the volunteer work that I do. And it's always a joy just to be able to do that.
That's awesome. Well, tell me, how did you first become aware of the Invisible Disabilities Association and then get involved?
I believe, gosh, it was so long ago.
You and
I,
I spoke a long time. I mean, yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
it's been a while. We've had a great relationship for a long time, and I've been primarily working with you guys online, and working to help you raise money. And I helped you to raise awareness for your association. In all of the in all of the work that I put out, and all of the written work that I put out, I include you in my sign off. I'm proud to note that I'm an ambassador for the Invisible Disabilities Association. I include that in my tag. So I'm happy to do that, and helping to spread awareness of your existence. Because oftentimes, and I have found this to be a challenge, when I've spent a good amount of time in hospitals as a patient as well as a volunteer, too many times doctors are very linear, in terms of their specializations. But more often than not, people who are grappling with an issue are grappling with more than one, and one affects another. So to have an association like Invisible Disabilities, where you understand that, is so beneficial.
Well, we appreciate every time you're talking about us. And, as I'm thinking through your thing, obviously we have this ID card, the disability ID card that we have out
Mm-hmm.
there. I kind of feel like we need to introduce your character some way that your characters get to know this person too, right? That serves
Right,
everybody.
absolutely.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, yeah, okay. There's a little bit of marketing going on there. So
No,
yeah.
and one of my good friends, who is the I almost know one of the big impacts that you had on me was what a close friend of mine's daughter has cerebral palsy, and I believe she got very involved with you. And one of my characters is based off of her, who has cerebral palsy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I think that was another channel how I was introduced with you initially, was that I believe she did some speaking on your behalf. And that was another very positive impact in how I got introduced with you initially.
Well, for sure. And again, thanks for every time you mention it and are involved with us and everything that you do. For the people that don't know, the Invisible Disabilities Association, we kind of serve like what I would call the front porch. Like somebody might be diagnosed with something and they're just going, what the heck do I do? Like, I don't even know where to go. And they will land with us. And then we will kind of counsel and advise and talk through some stuff. And then usually, depending on what they're dealing with, we will get them right to, let's say somebody comes to us and just has been diagnosed with MS, right? Well, we introduce them to the MS Society so that they can get more involved with specific treatments and or, advocacy that would help them. So that tends to be a lot of the things that we're doing. And we did mention this, the disability ID card. I mean, we have a few of them. We have the medical one as well with Guava Health that allows for you to track the different, any of your physical medical records that you could bring along with you. So that's what this card does.
Okay,
Um,
great. Yeah.
yeah, no, there's a lot of things that have worked out that are very helpful. And then obviously there are quite a few of the states that allow for that disability symbol. I mean, this has become the official government approved symbol for people living with invisible disabilities. I mean, it goes from Homeland Security, it's on the real IDs that you can get through airports with, you put that symbol on your driver's license. If you feel like you want help, it's voluntary, obviously. Some people don't want that kind of a thing, and just in case there would be some kind of discrimination. But a lot of people have chosen to get that symbol on a government ID to help them through in different situations. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just add, having invisible disability is challenging because you often have to feel, you shouldn't have to feel like you have to prove that you have a disability. I mean, I sort of define disability as, you know, my disability is my need for medical intervention, that I need for myself, impacts my life every minute of every day, even though if you just look at me, it doesn't look like it.
Hmm.
But it impacts every minute of every day, from meds that I take. I mean, I take a boatload of meds every day, to how I eat and how it affects my body, to, I mean, I'm thinking about it constantly, to how am feeling, to how I might react to certain things, to how I have to think about. One of the most frustrating things I come across, which might seem silly, but if I go to a party, if I don't know what's going to be served, or if things come out, if I don't know what's going to be on the tray and something different comes out every 20 minutes, that is really hard for me, because being diabetic, you can't plan for that. You don't know how much insulin to take. And
Right.
taking
Gotta
insulin means knowing how many carbohydrates you're going to consume, because you have to plan how much insulin to take to cover those carbohydrates.
Yeah, I would
So,
imagine that you overcome on that by carrying a lot of things with you all the time, right?
and it's really hard
Yeah.
if you don't know what food's going to come out next on the tray.
Well, and you even mentioned, one of the common statements that people say is that somebody says, "Well, you look good to me," and like that external appearance is means that the disability doesn't exist. And our comment is, well, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there, right? I mean,
Right.
the other side of that is it's interesting. I mean, we talk about, invisible disabilities came about because when Sherry came home, in 96 when she was really frustrated, she said, I feel like I have this invisible disability, like I can't figure it out. And it's interesting, there's other terms that people use out there, like hidden disability or non-apparent. Well, wait a second. Again, we're not trying to hide this. It's not hidden. It's invisible. There's a big difference. Hiding it is you're purposely trying to hold it in and not let people know. And don't get me wrong, you might need to do that at some point to do stuff, but it's invisible and you have the choice to talk about it and to bring people into that circle so that you can have accommodations or you can get help. So it's interesting as we even see the terminology out there of what it means to have an invisible disability. Again, it's something that we don't want it to be invisible, but it is. So there has to be more advocacy and explanation as far as accommodations in the circles that we're in, right?
Well, now I want to add to that, in terms of what you just said, hidden versus invisible. One of the, two, I have two missions. One is disability empowerment, and the other is stigma elimination.
Hmm.
And that goes whether your disability is hidden or not. And the only way to get rid of stigma is to not hide things, because stigma is a result of ignorance and fear. And the way you get rid of ignorance and fear is through education and conversation. And those two things can't happen if people with disabilities aren't talking about them, if there's not education about them, if you're not willing to have a conversation about them. So I know it's not comfortable for everybody, but I'm an open book. And I encourage, although, I don't demand, certainly, but I encourage people with disabilities to be willing to talk to people about it. I encourage it just
And
because it makes it easier for you. I think it makes it easier for the person with the disability ultimately. Although it might be hard at first. I'll tell a funny story. When I was first diagnosed with epilepsy, I couldn't say the word seizure. It took a long time for me to say the word seizure, that I had seizures. I called them donuts because I had diabetes before I had epilepsy. And a donut is a person with diabetes' worst enemy. I haven't had a donut in decades. Since I was 30 years old, I haven't had a donut because nothing raises your blood sugar like a donut. And so when I first was diagnosed with epilepsy, I called seizures donuts. I couldn't even write the word seizure. When I would log my seizures, I had
it
a
was
little donut icon.
it was the bad thing, right? Look, it's the bad thing.
So, but eventually I got over that, right? It's hard, but I really believe to get rid of stigma, you have to be able to talk about it.
Well,
It's
and
part of
honestly,
who you are.
yeah, that's why this particular card came about. This is something that you're able to wear, and our awareness campaigns are, that when somebody sees this symbol or somebody wearing it, the next question should be, how can I help? Right? This doesn't provide any special privileges. You can't park in a special spot. You don't get discounts on stuff. But the whole point is it does have information on it that shows, an emergency contact, some information about what to do and what the person might have. But again, it really is to open that conversation, like you said, to allow for accommodations to happen. Now, the other side of it is that if you're having a good day, you don't have to wear it. Right? I mean, okay, you don't feel like you need help today, and you don't want to be identified as somebody with an invisible
You can
disability.
also, you can also go in between. You can keep it in
Right.
your wallet.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly the way it works. So yeah, we've found that people are utilizing it in those manners to open the conversations when they need to or they want to. Yeah. Well, really neat stuff that you're working on there. I love the idea of the graphic novels and the characters that you've created. Can't
Thank,
wait to see how the series plays out. We
thank
do
you.
like to ask kind of one final question when we're
Sure.
having these kind of conversations with our ambassadors or anybody really, and that is the darkest day, toughest time, things are happening. What is it that encourages you? This is the Invisible Disability Encourage podcast. What is it that encourages you to get through a day?
I look back on where did I make a difference? Because I see that I have made a difference in people's lives, even if it's just one person. And I'll tell a quick story. And my husband reminds me of this story on days when I have hard days. We were at a birthday party. Oh, I don't even know. It was probably a couple years ago for some adult friends. He was turning 60, I think. And we met another couple, and the wife of the other couple, she wandered off, and the husband was still talking with us, and I was talking to him, and I talked to him about how I wrote Epilectra and how 1 in 26 people are diagnosed with epilepsy in their lifetime. And I said it's as common as a letter in the alphabet. And he leaned over and he whispered to me, I'm one of the 1 in 26. And now you're the only person who knows this besides my wife. And if she knew that I told you, she would die.
Wow.
And just the fact that he confided that in me and this is an adult man, someone who's in that age range. And I don't know, adults can develop epilepsy. I developed epilepsy as an adult. I developed diabetes as an adult. Just the fact that he confided that in me made me realize how important this work is and what I'm doing is. So
No, for sure.
that's something that I remind myself of.
Well, that's a good story. And again, just the fact that you shared allowed him to share, and who knows how that might be helpful for him in the future.
Right.
Yeah, good job. Keep up the great work. Well,
Thank
let me
you.
ask the question, how can people find your books?
Okay, you can find me on my website, which is www.epilectra.com, and I think you can put up a graphic for that. I'm also available, excuse me, on Amazon.com. Just look up Epilectra.
Cool.
I'm also all over social media, so you can follow me if you want. I put up all sorts of stuff about Epilectra and all sorts of stuff that I think people in the disability community might find interesting or beneficial.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Again,
My
Sue's
pleasure.
one of our IDA ambassadors. And like she said, you can find her stuff at www.epilectra.com. And again, Sue, thanks for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, if you've been watching this, you know how to find us. We're at invisible-disabilities.org, and tune into some of our other shows. We love to get your response and your feedback on how this information helps you get through living with invisible disabilities on a daily basis.